Hey everybody, I'm back again with another video. This time I'm going over some X-Tech pull hydraulic brakes. Now these are cable pull hydraulic brakes. That way I didn't have to replace the levers and put new hose lines on there. I could use the existing cables on my Lectric XP version 1. Now the brakes weren't that bad on the version 1, but they were a little squeaky. Plus I did have a stripped bolt that was going into the mount of the brakes, which was making a lot of noise. And so I figured I'll get stronger brakes and also not have to worry about that stripped bolt. So anyway, that's what we're going over today, plus some tire maintenance. Let's get started with another video. Let's go. So this is my current setup. I have the original Tektros, and like I said, they work good, but they tend to get out of adjustment a lot, and they sometimes make noise. Here on my front brake, I tend to have a lot of problems with this brake. This bolt gets stripped at times, right in here actually, and so I just figured let's just go with the new brake caliper and see how the hydraulics work. It should be pretty simple. It should be just swapping out these bolts. I'm gonna have to take out the adjustment here, and I do know from doing my wife's brakes that this front part here is probably gonna have to be reused on the new brakes, at least the ones I bought for her. So I'm gonna see if that's the same. Alright, so I know that this part right here might have to be reused, so I'm going to preemptively take that off. Normally you'd want to take this off anyway, because you want to get the cable loose. So first you get the cable loose enough to release. I had a problem when I originally got my electric where this got caught up in my brakes like that and actually shredded it. So I just put a little bit of liquid tape on the end of it, and that seems to be working fine, but I would probably get a new end if I had to do it again, but it's been working. I haven't decided to change it yet. This nut here, which will allow you to spin this out. Now, like I said, I'm going to be probably reusing this nut, so that's why I am taking this all the way out. You would have to do that anyway to replace the caliper, but I'm going to leave this on here for now. Okay, so here's the brake caliper. As I showed in the video, there's these two bolts that basically go into the bike itself. So you only have to loosen these two bolts to get the caliper off. These other two bolts here are for adjustments. So this is how you can get the angle and everything. So after you've tightened the actual mount to the bike, then you loosen these, press the brakes in, and that will get you your tilt and your adjustment, and then you tighten those up, and that will line up your caliper with your rotor. As far as what you need to take off the bike from the new brakes, as I showed, I had to replace this piece here because there is a end cap on the actual wire, and when that end cap is there, if you were to try to feed it through here, it would not fit through this hole, because this hole is pretty tiny. It's not as big as the end cap is, so you have to snap that off, or you can just take this piece off of the new calipers and then put on your new calipers the old one, and you don't have to take that end cap off. I'm sure it's pretty easy to swap those end caps off, but I just didn't feel like doing it. But that's basically, in a nutshell, how you can change your brakes. So it's really only two bolts here and this piece here, and then you can swap them out. Next thing you want to do is release. That was on there pretty good. The Allen headed bolts to release your caliper. It should come off all in one piece. And once that's done, you're halfway there. So it's relatively simple to replace these. That's why I went with the cable pull hydraulic brakes versus going full hydraulic brakes, because then I would have had to have replaced the cable with hydraulic lines and bled the brakes, a bunch of other stuff. So that's basically it in a nutshell for the old brakes. They come right off. Okay, so here's a pro tip. The front and the back brakes mount are totally different from each other. So compare the old brake mount with the new brake mount and make sure that they look at least reasonably the same, because the rear brakes are totally different from the front brakes. And if you try to mount those brakes on the front, they just won't line up and you'll know that there's something wrong. So just take one of the brakes and just put them next to each other and see which one's which. Then you can just thread through the cable back in and start to thread that on. I didn't fully thread it, I just threaded it a little bit to hold it in place. Then I started to tighten up the bolts into the mount on the caliper. Now, another thing that you need to be wary of is if the bolts are too long, because they give you universal bolts. So the brake manufacturer didn't know how far the distance between your rotor and your mount is, so they just gave you some. So I ended up having to put some washers or spacers in order to not hit my rotor with the end of the bolt. So I made the mistake of tightening it all the way down without spinning it first to see if it hit against it. So I'm going to have to get back to that later. So now what I have to work on is basically getting the caliper close in adjustment. So first I'm going to get it a little bit tighter on the bolts that basically stick through the caliper. Now those are basically your alignment bolts. So once you've got it mounted on there, you can get those close to being tight, but not fully tight. You don't want them full tight because you're going to have to adjust them later. Then you want to take your cable and you want to get your cable put back into that little clamp there. And once it's clamped down and some of the slack has been taken out and you make it a little bit more taut, then you can adjust your lever. So all of this has to be basically put to a close proximity of where the brakes need to go. Then you can make fine adjustments after you get everything close. So I've taken some of the slack out, I've adjusted the bolt kind of in actually, and then pulled it a little bit out so that I have a little bit play each way. Then I hit my lever, I kind of figured that was pretty close, so I'm loosening the bolts, and then I press in the lever while having my Allen in the bolt and then screwing the bolt tight. This will allow the caliper to straighten out with the rotor and be in alignment with the rotor. So if you, as long as you hold that lever in, then it will pretty much be at the right angle. And at least if you get one bolt tight, then it shouldn't move too much. But now I've realized that the bolt is just maybe an eighth too long and it's touching my rotor. So I have to take the bolts out, unfortunately, and get some washers on there. So there I go, I put the washer in there, and since I did one, even though the other one is pretty much clear of the rotor, I'm going to put a washer just to make it level. So that's pretty much it for the brake installation. The back one's pretty much the same. There's a couple of little variances, but overall it's the same process. You just take a couple bolts out, string that other guide bolt in, and you're done. Here we go again. Rear tire, flat as a pancake. Don't know why. It seems to get like that. I am noticing that my spokes look a little bowed. So I don't know if the tire got punctured from the spoke side or the other side of the roadside, but something happened, because I'm noticing also right there in that dust location, it almost seems like that's where it was leaking from, but then again it could have been just leaking from the tube and just pushing up from there. So anyway, I'm going to investigate. I'm going to take this tire all apart. So I'm going to have to loosen these bolts, take the chain off the other side, and then slide the tire, it looks like, this way. So hopefully I don't have to take this caliper off in order to get the tire off. Can't remember if I had to do that last time. Normally, what I do is I will flip the bike upside down. But since I changed the position of my monitor or my display right there, I put that kind of high, so I'm gonna have to figure out a way to boost the bike and flip it in order to get the rear tire off. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your display out of the way, because I'm going to have to flip this thing upside down. So I also raised my seat. That way you can keep the bike upright and still take off the tire. So anyway, that's what I got to do next. So a 18 opened in crescent should work. And there it goes. You can use a 3/4, but it's kind of loose, so definitely an 18. So you do this side, then the opposite side. And you just loosen them until they're a little bit off. Now, very important, before you take the rim off, right here you have your plug. You're going to have to cut a zip tie, and then you can take this plug apart, and that'll allow you to take the tire off. If you don't do that, you're going to be in a world of hurt if you break this wire, because that's how you get your power to your motor. Okay, so I removed this. It was just a plug. Pop it directly out after you cut this off. So it goes in here and then gets plugged into here. So once you cut the zip tie, you'll just pop it apart. And now you have this removed. You can now take this chain off and then just completely loosen the tire, and you should be able to remove it. One more thing you don't want to forget, there's an Allen bolt right here. You have to take that off in order to take off this anti-slip little protector in here, otherwise you can't get the rim off. So just pull this off. This is the guide. Gotta remember to put it back through here and back on. Actually, that's the protector. So that was a lot of work. Maybe I'll take it to a bike shop next time. I don't know. If you don't like doing a lot of work, probably don't do this. Now, let's install some Tuffy stop flats, which are basically just like Thorn Busters. Now, there is a brand called Thorn Busters. These are not them. I think I got these because these were biodegradable, and they were all around the same price. You can use these. These are actually made to remove the tires properly instead of a screwdriver like I did. Of course, I found these in my garage after I had already replaced the tire. So this is the proper way to do it. If you have these, they usually come with the tube. You can use these. So I'm just going to do a quick high-speed run through of putting another one in with just a little bit better close-up view of the tire itself. Now that I've put, I think this was like my third or fourth one on, it was a lot easier. I'm still using a screwdriver. Like I said, I really don't recommend using a screwdriver, but you can. It works in theory the same. But you just roll it in there, try to keep it straight so that it's not flipping over. So if it flips over, just pull it out and start again. And I basically just got it between the top of the tube and the bottom side of the outer tire, and once I got it wrapped all the way around, it pretty much will kind of align itself once you start airing it up. So you just squeeze the tire, get it on there, air it up, and it should align itself, kind of push itself to the top, and at least you got a 2-inch wide strip on the bottom of your tire that shouldn't allow for thorns and nails and glass to penetrate. Because that's the one problem I have with these tires, is it seems like everything just pops right through. So I'm back on the road again. I'm going to test these out and let you guys know how well they work. And I took it on a little jaunt around my neighborhood just to make sure that my tires weren't going to air down and that they were going to ride true and straight. And I felt no difference from having standard tires. So they're really thin, but they're pretty hard plastic. So it's kind of flexible yet hard plastic in between tire and tube. I haven't really found like some Kevlar 20 by 4 inch actual tires. At least I've been looking on Amazon. I don't know where else to look. And so I would say that this is a pretty cheap alternative to getting really expensive sticker tires for now. I have seen some other tires on Amazon, but they don't seem like they're made with any better material. So until these tires get more bald, I'm just going to rock them for a little while. And then when I buy new tires, I'll try and buy a little bit more expensive tires and see if those work any better. But I'll also still keep these, tire protectors and still slime them so that I don't have to take that rear tire off. That, as you saw, was quite a job. I mean, you can take them to a bike shop and probably have them slime it, put the tire protectors in, and all of that. And, think last time I got my tire replaced and had slime put in it, because it was an electric bike and because it was so hard, they charged me $40. So if that's worth it to you, I would say then do it that way if you don't want to go through the extra work, or if you just don't feel confident in your bike repair skills. So everything I covered in this video was pretty much basically installing the hydraulic brakes, at least the fronts, but the backs are exactly the same. Doing a little bit of tire maintenance, taking out off the rear tire, and then showing you how to add some tire protectors for some Thorn and nail protection, since these tires aren't really that tough, and it seems like stuff seems to find its way in. Like I said, I had 2 flat tires since I've had these bikes, both of them on the rear, and they were both real buggers to get off and then reinstall. Anyway, do I recommend these things? I recommend sliming it for sure. If you want to do the Thorn protection, that's not very expensive. They're on Amazon. I can't remember what they were, but I'll post a price on here somewhere on the screen. And then the only other thing would be, would I use those hydraulic brakes? And the answer is definitely yes. Those were not very much either, so I'll post a price for those too, and that's for the pair. Anyway, that's my video. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna get the tech out of here. Later. I'm walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger.